Constructing your life is about much more than just building a bank account. Each week, join real estate entrepreneur and mindset coach Austin Linney as he interviews guests who are constructing their dream lives and impacting the world around them on a daily basis. If you're an entrepreneur or wanting to start a business, or you just want to hear motivating stories of how others have overcome the odds, you are in the right place. And now for your host, Austin Linney.
Guys, welcome to Construct Your Life here. We got Austin Linney. We've got my man, Mr. Ellis Hammond here, multifamily investor. He's got a book coming out. He's got so much stuff going on. Happy to have him. How you doing, my brother?
Good, bro. Really excited to be here. It's Ellis, like Ellis Island for your listeners. And man, excited. I was just like, we were just talking on the pre-show, like, man, hit record. Like, we're doing some good stuff right here. So pumped, man, to finally meet you, I guess face to face. This is like the face to face 2020 style, man. Yeah. It's like all good friendships are met on Zoom.
Here's the thing though. I look good in the Zoom camera though. So I'm okay with this. So dude, why don't you tell us, I know a little bit about your story, but why don't you kind of fill the listeners in on your story? You can start where you want to and we'll keep going.
Yeah. I mean, briefly, man, like I'm a full-time real estate investor entrepreneur. These days, we have an acquisition side to our business where we're purchasing large multifamily, and then we have a mastermind community that really serves faith-driven investors and guys who are really building businesses around real estate investing. The reason I share that, man, is because, like, I'll be honest, I got no reason to be here. I always say I'm the least qualified in the room. I was a former college pastor and missionary for 6 years. Really had wanted nothing to do with wealth or capital or making money. Thought money was something that really wasn't worth pursuing just because of all the destructive things, man, money did in my life, my family's life for so long. But got to a point where, to be honest, we just needed more money. Like, we just, things were happening, things were growing, and people around us really needed more money. And it just was a turning point for me to say, hey, we got to figure out how do we influence not just with our time, but also with our capital. And so just got hungry, man, to learn how do we seriously build and create wealth that can impact others. And real estate became that vehicle. I went to a 2-hour seminar that said how to build wealth through real estate. And I just looked around the room and realized, wow, here are people like me, blue collar, no real estate education, don't come from money, who are really changing their lives through real estate. And it was a huge turning point for me where I realized this. Dude, I didn't know how you bought real estate before. I really didn't. I really thought you had to already have millions or whatever. And it was the first time I saw, wow, real estate is actually the starting point for all who want to build wealth. It's not the end goal. And so we bought our first duplex in San Diego, California. Less than a year later, we did our first syndication deal, which was 144 units. And never looked back, man, and realized, heck, I actually think I like being an entrepreneur more than I like being a pastor. So we transitioned out of our full-time ministry role in January of this year and been building our business ever since, man. So it's been a really fun year. Really feel like I'm in my sweet spot, really serving entrepreneurs, investors in that regard.
Wow, there's so much there. You didn't even wait to get the next duplex. You just went for a big apartment complex. I love that.
Yeah.
But what's interesting, I want to touch on a point that I think is something that I even had a problem with. And, I think it's the number one problem. We had dinner with some friends last night. Changing your relationship with money, I think, is probably one of the more difficult things. More importantly, I don't think people understand how money works, which is an interesting thing. So talk about kind of, money's the problem, money's the thing, and then you switch and you go, wait, the people around me need some money. Like, and here's the way I view it. The more money I make is the more money I can give. So that's the way I look at it. So talk about how that transitioned for you and what really changed.
Yeah, it's huge, man. So I'm writing this book right now, and I talk about my baggage I carried in and kind of like the 3 pivotal things that really changed for me. One of those I realized, and I think this plagues the faith community, man, because there is a lot in the Bible, right? Like, if you read the Bible, Jesus talks a lot about money. And it's because what he realizes, what I realize, is that there's only really 2 routes that you can really choose when it comes to money. You don't get another option in this. And the 2 routes are this. Either money becomes your master meaning you serve money, or you learn how to use money as a tool and become master over it. That's it. Like, it is like one of those things have to happen. And I think too often we just say, man, we don't really learn we're not educated on how to really create, build, multiply, protect money. And so, we think of it as a limited resource. And so therefore, when we have this idea that money is a limited resource, then it has mastery over us, because now we're worried about losing it. We can't go create more of it. We can't give it away because, like, where's my share? And so, for me, man, and this is what I've learned this year, is that I can be a good master over money. Money is, I'm not gonna, like I could say something, but money is a tool, right? That I can learn how to really steward, and it is not a limited resource.
Mm-hmm.
There are so many ways to create money, multiply that money. Real estate is a great way to do that. So, anyways, man, that was a turning point for me in realizing, dang, dude, I want to have more money because I can be a good steward. That was the other thing. I just didn't think I was a good steward of money, not because I never had it, not because I had it and did something bad with it. I actually never had it. And so those are huge for me, man. So yeah, not to get on a long tangent, but
no, I love it. Have you ever read Kyle Cease's book, The Illusion of Money? And the reason that you have it is because the reason that you don't have it is because you want it.
Yeah.
Have you read that book?
But I can get the premise. Sounds
dude,
awesome.
I'm telling you right now, I've handed this book to 3 people and they go, it changed my life.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that should be taught and basically understand that money is just, it's air. It's a transactional thing that's just kind of flows around. You don't control it, but you can move through it. And when it doesn't own you, you can really step outside of yourself and allow it to work for you. I think that's one of the issues that people have in investing, is that, like, people laugh at me how I can walk into a property like 400 grand and you're like, okay, I'll take it. And they're like, I don't know, you just spent 400 grand. I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like, it's a vehicle. Like, cause I know Airbnb so well. So it's like, no, this is the thing that's going to make money. We're going to do this, this, and this. And there's such a calmness that comes over you once you do those transactions over and over again. But for somebody that doesn't, my favorite thing to do in the entire world is to help investors buy their first property. Because once you get over that first hurdle, I think the momentum, it took me 7 years to buy my first deal. 7 bad deals hit the table. And then in the first year, I bought 3 properties in 9 months. And I never thought it was going to happen.
It's man, because what you see when you see value in a deal, and I think what most people see is that they just see an expense or they see a hurdle, when you walk into the house, you're like, I see value. I can create value. And the other turning point for me mentally was, man, money flows to value. And I think most people don't realize that, right? Money flows to value. And I think a huge turning point for me is, and you get this because you just said this, like, it took you 7 houses to get confidence in this. And that's what maybe most people need to fail a little bit more before this next thing happens. But what most people don't realize or see is the value in themselves. And so part of the reason they, think money's a limited resource is because they don't see themselves as an asset. And I'm like, hey, dude, I assure you, as an entrepreneur and business owner now, no real estate is going to produce the return that Ellis Hammond can produce. You know what I'm saying? It's like, that took me a while to figure out too. Like, I have a mastermind community now, man, that people pay a good amount of money to be a part of. I would have never thought someone would do that 12 months ago. Like, you'll pay me how much to be part of the community that I started? Like, if someone would have told me that, I'd be like, nah, man, like that would never happen. But that shifted for me when I realized, like, no, Ellis, you are a person of value and you bring incredible value to others. And so I think that's a turning point for anyone really on this journey, man, is seeing yourself as your greatest asset and investing into that as well. And just being okay early on to say, I got to fail a bunch of times to grow in that confidence, like you said you did. So anyways, man, I just hearing your story, I'm like, yeah, I resonate with that completely. So I'm glad I didn't have to fail 7 bad properties to get there on my end. I mean,
but, I've had about 30. I feel like you're coaching me right now. So I'm really excited about this. The issue for me in the coaching business, and just meaning in general, is that I've had so many lows that my quality of who I think I am, maybe in my own head, is so much lower to what's actually being put out there, right?
Mm.
And thank God I have really good friends. And I've, kind of been, I go through spells like where I was like doubting myself. And, the podcast is still a limiting belief for me, even though I get up and execute every day. I just look at it as my own master. And he said, hey, idiot. He said, it's a good friend. He said, hey, idiot, maybe you should go back and listen to some of your content because it's pretty great. And maybe you should take some of your own advice. And I was like, and then I started listening and I was like, oh, like it's pretty good, right? But we would never talk to ourselves the way that we would talk to other people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this whole thing, meaning changing your life around, investing, being a better person, lifting up the community, is about the conversations that you're having with inside your own head.
That's so huge. That's so huge. But you're right, man. Most of us need an outside person to really point that. I did too. I had a coach. I hired a coach. I hired a coach when I had no money. I hired a coach when I really had no idea what I wanted to do. I need a coach. Like, I need someone to speak objectively in my life in this season right now who can point out the things that I don't see. And I do think that's so huge. So if it's not a coach, maybe it's a friend, but I do think it's hard for anyone to really see that the intrinsic value really hold. And so someone who, is not so tied to their own ego that they can point out the incredible things that you have. And that was for me, man. Someone said, Ellis, you are a community builder. Like, people, you have this incredible value of really bringing people together. And, that's my God-given calling, is like, I just create communities that create impact. And I did no idea. And, so like you, man, I had a coach who said, this is, you're a superpower, you're a superhero. Like, you are powerful and talented. And he just kept saying that. I'm like, I don't know, man, and I remember like launching our mastermind community and saying, all right, well, I'm going to charge $1,000 for it. And like, one of my friends like, dude, no, you're not. Like, that's like not even worth doing. He's like, you got to charge more. I'm like, no one will pay for that, man. And so we went with it, and 8 people signed up, and I'm like, holy crap, And so, yeah, man, we really do need friends and coaches, I think, in a lot of seasons to really spot those things.
It's not until a person that you respect, and I tell this story to any young investor that I can. I met, now he's a friend, but I met at the time my mentor through DMs after hearing him speak. And, I just stayed relentless. And he said, listen, I got 15 minutes. I said, fine. I bought a plane ticket, flew across the country to meet him for 15 minutes and have coffee. Wow. And when we sat down, and it's somebody that you look up to, right? And he looks at you dead in the face and he goes, I'm no different than you. I just got started before you did. And it's like, that was for me what changed my whole shit, because it was like, oh, like, he's just a human just like me. And he's seeing intrinsic value in who I am and my energy and who I can be. And that is like the confidence boost that you need to like rocket ship into like another atmosphere. And what I try to tell my team every day, if you can wake up every day and realize that Gary Vee thinks that he's playing small, then we got shit to do.
Yeah. Well, here's a step to that, man. Most of us just aren't around big enough thinkers. Like,
yeah,
bro, that's the power of our mastermind. I just put the baddest, biggest, best people in a room together. And like, why I do that? And I'm lucky because people pay me to do it too. It's because I want to be around people who are doing bigger stuff than me, because I know my biggest problem is I think too small. Like, because here's the thing, 12 months ago, not even 12 months ago, I guess we're getting closer to 12 months ago, I would have never thought we'd have a community of investors that want to put 100, 200 grand into a deal with us. I have a community that pays me to be a part of this. That was 12 months ago. And what has changed? Like, honestly, what has changed in me? It's not like I went and got more education. No, don't get me wrong. I've read and listened and did a bunch of stuff since then. So there's a little bit there, but it's not like I got a new degree. No one has anointed me as this, whatever. The only thing that's changed, man, is my mentality that says, Ellis, you're a person of value and you can go create something. And then the other big thing that's changed is my network. But like, I mean, you're so right on. The problem, I think a lot of us is just we're not around big enough thinkers. We think too small. We don't come up with big enough ideas. And so we just play small ball all the time. So a big part of this game of entrepreneurship, building wealth, capital is just like, exactly like you're saying, I need to be around people who are doing stuff that I would never dream of. And the thing that's only different about them most of the time is that they're just around bigger thinkers as well.
Yeah, but
right? Like that really is it. Like they're just like their standard or their level of what is normal is so far above us because they're around people who are thinking even higher than what they're doing or have been around that for a long time.
But to go on another layer, and I'm saying this so if somebody's listening, I want them to look at themselves in the mirror. Maybe some of the reason that they're not around bigger thinkers is because they're basically they like being in their comfort zone.
Yeah.
Because, dude, when you step into a room, when I joined my first mastermind, and I thought I was big shit because I had 3 Airbnbs, and then you roll up on somebody who's got 150.
Yeah.
Your mind's like, whoop.
Yeah.
But the thing is water finds its level. So, if you're gonna get in those rooms for the first time in my life, because I was a high-end bar manager for 20 years, I was so in my comfort zone. I was the top 1% of the 1% of what I did. I made great money, but I was never satisfied. And when you step into that new deep water, it can be intoxicating, but it also can propel you to thrive at the highest level too.
Yeah. And if you're nervous about, another great way to get around big thinkers are books or podcast shows, and that's a great starting. Don't feel like you got to go spend 10 grand or 20 or whatever, like to be like, listen, there are so many good books out there that will tap you into the minds of guys like Gary Vee. We're using him as an example, but Grant Cardone and 10X is a book that I read like once a quarter, just because the dude just causes me to stretch and think in such new ways. So, just big thinker. Put yourself, begin to, listen to podcast shows was really how we got started. I didn't know that you could buy real estate or syndicate deals and start pulling investors. All that came from listening to podcast shows and thinking, dude, if that guy can do it, come on. Like, I think I can do this, man.
Dude, if you walk in enough remodels and you look how bad the work is, you're like, I can do this. We'll be all right.
Yeah.
Hey,
yeah.
But something I want to touch on that you started conversation, because I want to touch on it because it matters. I would imagine, and regardless how you feel about the outside perception, but dude, changing from a pastor to a real estate investor, I haven't heard that before. But second of all, I would imagine the outside community pressure or how it looks. Not that we care about how people looks, but I would imagine that that's not the easiest thing in the world.
Well, you're right. Actually, I talk about this. I'm writing this book, and I think we're going to talk about it in a minute. But I talk about this turning point for me. And I bought $10 million worth of real estate in about 10 months. Right. So it's like, all of a sudden, and then I'm like, I got this big, I'm like excited, like put this post on Facebook. I'm thinking like, oh, people are going to think I'm like, really cool. And I'm like, I really know all my stuff and people are going to want to invest in me. And so I craft this post on Facebook and I hit send and I'm like, yeah, let's go. All this stuff's going to flood in. It's going to be great. And bro, I was just like, it did not go that way, man. And the people were like, what do you mean you bought 10 million? Like, I thought you were a pastor. Like, what are you buying? People were calling me like, hey, I don't know if we should keep supporting you because like now you have all this money to buy real estate. And I realized, man, and people don't know how this stuff works. I didn't have $1 million. Again, I didn't have the money to buy these deals. I used other people's money. And I'm not all of a sudden rich because I own $10 million in real estate. That's not how this stuff works. It takes time, right? The value is in the end product. So it was like, but people don't understand that. And what I also didn't realize is that I had been on this journey for about 1.5 years of changing my money mindset and realizing that I can be a master over money, that money is a vehicle that I'm really called to steward both time and capital. And I sent a Facebook post expecting everyone to get that in an instant. And I was pissed early on, dude. I was pissed for about 2 days And then that hit me like, Ellis, you've been doing this. And maybe it was the Lord speaking to me and just being really gracious. And my wife reminded me as well. But Ellis, you've been on this journey for 15 months. You can't expect people to catch up in a Facebook post. And so part of my mission of multifamily in building this investment business is just helping people realize and be on this journey with me, that we can together be better stewards of capital, and we can really use that for good. It is the mission of multifamily. That's the name of the book I'm writing. And so that's part of my mission, man, is to really bring people with me in this and say, hey, we can actually make money and make an impact. It doesn't have to be bifurcated. You don't have to be a pastor or a missionary to really make incredible impact in this world. You can be an entrepreneur, a business owner, an investor, right? Like a W-2 employee, right? Like you can be all of those things and still have a tremendous influence and impact in the world. And so that, so you're right. Yeah, I definitely got some pushback, but I kind of went the other way. I was like, well, I'm going to be so, let's say, like in your face that I'm going to change this narrative. So I started a podcast. I did all these things for me and for them as well to say, okay, well, what do I got to do to get this message out to help people see that my mission hasn't changed, just my vocation, right? No, I'm not a pastor anymore. But dude, what I'm passionate about, serving God, making him known, helping others, bro, I can do anything and do that. I've chosen to do that in real estate.
Isn't that, and it's funny, I think I had this conversation like 2 days ago with somebody. Isn't that one of the issues with the art community? The creative community is you have to suffer. Like, oh, you can't, screw the man, all this stuff.
Right.
And like, no, dude, no. Like, I meet so many 24-year-olds that are like, no, it's my art and it's everything. And I'm like, go read Big Magic and understand that your art is nothing but it moves through you. And so there's no nobility. You can't really help a lot of people when you barely can feed yourself.
Right.
And you know what I'm saying? Like, me as a person, regardless if I make $1 million or 80,000, I'm still who I am. But the identity of who we are, and I think if anything has taught us anything over the last couple of months, if you are wrapped up in the identity of your job, like it's your everything, instead of who you are as a person and what you do around you, then you're failing.
Yeah,
because
100%. That's so good. Identity around what you do. Oh man, and don't get me wrong, I struggled with that, dude. This was not like, oh, I'm ready. Like, this was I remember sitting across the table from my best friend and say, hey man, I think I'm going to. I think I need to make a transition, and being so scared that I was leaving my greatest impact. And I didn't transition for another year. Like, it took me a while to really get there, but then also transitioning our team and stuff. So yeah, I mean, it's scary, man, but I think it is doing the hard work of unraveling yourself from anything that you have identity in that isn't, that doesn't come from something bigger or greater. Like, and your job is definitely not that. Like, there's a difference between your vocation and your calling. Like I said, I'm called to create communities that create impact. I can do that as a pastor. I can do it as a real estate investor, right? I can do this as a podcast host. Like, there's an array of ways that I can serve or live out my calling and find purpose in that. So it's huge, man.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I have a tendency, and I'd be interested to hear your take on it from a pastor point of view. In my early 20s, or when I started making the shift in personal development and started fixing myself, I have a tendency to peck. I call it the peck theory. Dude, you should do this. It's so easy. Read this book. And I go, wait, they don't want to listen to me. Everybody gets their message at their own time.
Right.
And when I got sober, I didn't say I didn't reach out to anybody and say, hey, you should get sober. I didn't do anything like that. I was on my own journey. But then I had 3 guys reach out to me and they're like, hey, we saw your crazy ass get sober. So if you can do it, we can do it. And they got sober. And I was they're like, you didn't speak to us, but thank you. And I'm like, that's when I realized that the only true way to make an impact in this world is to lead out front by example.
Yep. Dude, that's my book, Mission Multifamily, and a missionary's journey.
We'll transition
a missionary's journey towards financial freedom to apartment investing. Because if I can do it, bro, you can do it. Like, whoever's listening, if I can do it. And here's the thing. Here's the only caveat to that. I work my ass off, and I always work my ass off in everything that I do. And I'm hungry, and I did not stop. So you can do it if you're hungry and you're willing to persevere. That's the difference. But yeah, dude, that book is exactly it, man. I just wrote my story because I want people to see there's a lot I had to overcome to get here, but I didn't give up, man.
So this is perfect because I want to write a book. So this is like my own masterclass. I can't believe you wrote a book. I'm sure that you never thought that you would ever. You're like, oh, what am I doing? I'm sure there's moments when you're writing it like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
But you're just telling your story. So let's talk about the book. Let's unpack that. It'll be out next month. Let's talk about the book.
Yeah, Mission Multifamily. You can go to missionmultifamily.com. I got the domain, which is cool. It is that we're talking the book right now, man. It is my story. It starts with my mindset, like most things in life, and of just the mindset I personally had to overcome to really see that money flows to value. That we can really be masters over money instead of money being mastery over us. I talk about forming this new money mindset and the barriers I had to overcome. We can talk about this, man. Like, yeah, we got to form these new mindsets around money, but part of it is realizing the baggage we carry. So I had to look back. Like, my wife's a therapist, so she's really good at this. We didn't do this together, thankfully, but I would say all this is like, you got to kind of do some therapy, man. Like, I had to go back and be like, all right, my parents got divorced at 10, and the conflict of my life until my dad passed away when I was 21 was, who do I ask for money, right? Like, and it's always, I never got enough here or there. It was always attention. So I hated money, bro. And then I watched my dad retire when he was 40 and then struggle with, do we have enough money, blah, 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 until he was 55 and passed away. So then I saw my father strive for money and then pass away disillusioned by money, till the end of his life and never really felt like he had enough. So I was like, well, why would I work all my life for money when you just end up disappointed in the end, right? And then there was a couple other things I talk about as well, but like those things literally has shaped what I thought about money. And so, realizing the baggage that I carried and being like, all right, I got to get rid of this baggage, man. And then, the Facebook post, I talk about that being a huge turning point. But then a lot of it is just, okay, how are we using this vehicle of apartment investing? We have found a vehicle that I think, man, can take $1 and not just grow it, but you can have social impact, right? Like when we buy real estate, we're buying someone's home, like we're buying a community, and we're called to be good stewards of that. So our dollar now can have an impact on people's homes. And then for me, there's a real kingdom impact to this dollar because, as a man of faith and the things that we're doing some cool stuff with different organizations that can help people even on the spiritual realm of things. And so, dude, the see that we can actually own a business and even invest in an asset that can grow, multiply, protect your money, but also do multiple things in the sense of really having impact and good in our world. I am so on board. So I talk a lot about that, how we're doing that in multifamily, how anybody can do that. Whether you want to be like you and I, where this is our job, or you just want to invest. Like, you can just invest through syndications as a passive investor, grow your money and have an impact and never leave your job or never have to worry about a tenant or, whatever it is. So there's just so many cool ways, man, to partner together. And that really is what the book is all about. So it's kind of this journey where I talk about, financial education, my mindset, what we're doing in multifamily apartment investing and how people can get started and either, like I said, get started on your own, like I did, or get started in a much faster way by just partnering with us. That's another way to do it as well.
Dude, I can't wait to read it. It's going to be great. And you touched on something there that for me, ever since COVID hit, and I have a friend who grew up in inner city Philadelphia, and she grew up in a really rough area. She's African American. We had a great debate on my podcast about she's teaching her kid like investing now, and her 15. I coach. I help her kids, and like her 15-year-old daughter's reading Rich Dad Poor Dad. Like I just love it so much. I think for me, the lack of financial education in society blows my mind. We have a webinar we're coaching tomorrow with my financial advisor and a bunch of her friends who don't even know what mutual funds are. They don't even know what stocks are or anything. We have to educate our children and our adults on how money works and how you can make money work for you. And it's not about going out and buying a 150 unit apartment complex. It's about getting one or two properties that can maybe get you retired or get that as extra 2 vacation that I think is overlooked so much. And it really just frustrates me, the lack of knowledge out there, and it's available.
100%. Yeah. I mean, it's crazy how many investors I talk with. They're not investors actually. How many just people I talk with who I say, hey man, you're interested in this project we got coming up? And they say, well, by the way, people who work their entire life and right. And they say, hey, well, actually, my financial advisor takes care of all my stuff. So I don't really know kind of what's happening, which blows my mind to think that someone would work 40, 50 years of their life and entrust all of that hard work to someone that they really barely know, but because they have a couple certifications, that's what they've trusted to, that they really don't know what they're doing with it. And that's the issue, is that we think you need to go to, you need to be a financial advisor in order to manage your money. I'm like, that's actually really not true. And it's really not that complicated. What we do, man, when we buy assets, like we want it to really do 3 things. We want it to be protected, right? So we want to be in an asset class that we know is not going to be volatile and go up and down. We want it to cash flow, right? Like we want it to be able to cover our debt and create cash flow for us and investors on a monthly basis. And then we want it to protect us from high taxes. Like those are the things that kill us, are taxes and fees. And so, it's honestly, that's not that, if you think about it that way, it's not rocket science, man. Like buy an asset that's always going to be in demand, buy something that produces cash flow, something that can help you save in taxes. If you can do those 3 things, man, you can make a lot of money, and you don't need to pay this financial advisor to do that for you over the long term. So,
and just like my alcoholism, just like my drug addiction, just like all the problems that had affected me, the real issue in this society is, instead of bringing them into the light, meaning talking about finances, we want to keep them buckled up in a closet, hidden in the shadows. And when everything's in the shadows, it controls you.
Yeah.
And we have such a taboo on money in this world, and it just needs to be gone.
Yeah.
That's how, the bus driver gets retired 10 years earlier by buying a couple assets.
Well, I say this in my book, and I actually apologize before I say it because I know it's going to offend people. And I say, listen, hold your breath before I say this. But, the real problem is that most of us got our education from middle-class teachers. And we know what middle thinking produces. It produces middle-class results. And that's just a reality. And it's not their fault. They were taught by middle-class teachers as well. And so, like, I do see a movement in guys like you and me and a lot of people who are using their platforms and this idea of entrepreneurship to help people. Like, I think we have more platforms now that we can educate people. And that's part of what my book's doing, and it's part of what this podcast is doing. And so I do think there'll be a shift in this, that we actually have teachers. I mean, here's the thing, dude. None of us, you or I, are making money right now from anything we learned in high school, right? Like we are making money on what we have learned on the internet in the past couple of years. And so there's for sure going to be a shift towards this more and more so. And I think that's great. I think it's a good thing. It's not that we don't need formal education, but it's going to shift. It has to shift. Why would you go to college and make $80K a year when you can learn a trade on the internet and make $80K a month? Like, it just doesn't really add up anymore. And so, it's interesting how things are changing.
No, I love it. And have you ever heard of the book, The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry?
Mm-hmm.
So that book, when you first started talking, came to my mind. I read that. I thought it was a game changer. He's from, he was a priest as well. I thought it was a really great book to kind of put a lot of that stuff in perspective on like how you think. And I think
I'll be honest with you. I know a book you're talking about. My grandma recommended it to me. She's a very spiritual lady. I'm kind of scared to read that book because I just feel like it's going to cut me, man. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's one of those books where I'm like, that thing's going to cut me. I'm a little worried to read that book. So I'm putting that one off.
I
So
don't think you're ready. I don't think you're ready. I need it because I don't slow down. So
yeah, me neither. That's why I'm like, I probably don't want to read that book right now.
No,
I'm going too hard to read that book.
you would get the first chapter and you'd be like, I got to.
Yeah. So I'm like kind of waiting for a better season to read that. And if I'm just being real with you. I'm like, no, I've heard it. My grandma told me all about it. I'm like, I don't think I'm gonna read that one yet, man.
I appreciate transparency. That's real, man. So I know you don't. I want to be respectful of your time. How do they get a hold of you? How do they find out about the book, the podcast, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, if you enjoyed this, if you want to get a hold of me, I guess you might just be thinking this guy's crazy, man. Missionmultifamily.com. At least check out the book. It's free. I actually made it free. And maybe anyways, there might be some things later down the road, but right now it's free for a little bit. So go grab it while it's free. Missionmultifamily.com. I'm sure you'll be getting emails from me once you download that, and just respond. Let me know how you're enjoying it. I would love to interact with you in that way. The other best way is LinkedIn. Ellis Hammond, find me on LinkedIn. I produce a ton of content there around financial education and multifamily investing, entrepreneurship. Sometimes I post pictures of my puppy. And then we have a podcast show, Kingdom Capitalist, actually. So if you're really into this idea of faith, investing, entrepreneurship, check it out. It's we're crushing it, man. We just surpassed like 15,000 downloads this year. And so it's been huge, man. We've had some amazing guests on that show as well. So that's part of my journey. But missionmultifamily.com is definitely the starting place, and then all kind of good stuff after that.
I love it, guys. I love this interview. And guys, this is the power of the internet. This is the first time we've talked. So we'll just talk on the podcast. And I just DM'd them, and here we go. So if you like this interview, make sure you rate us and review us, share it with your friends, and we'll see y'all next time.
Thanks, Austin.
Thank you for listening to Construct Your Life with Austin Linney. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and pay it forward by sharing with a friend. Most importantly, take this opportunity to start constructing your life by taking immediate action on what you learned. For show notes, resources, and more information on one-on-one coaching with Austin, visit constructyourlifepodcast.com.